Sure. Okay. So pretty loud.
Yeah, did we get the new system already?
The new system isn't back here at all. Well,
Cancel it. We don't need it.
I think somebody turned one of the knobs on your mixer down there. It didn't happen. Uh-oh, because it's been ringing and all night long.
Down here?
Yeah.
All right, I just turned it off.
Oh, that's all right. I'll look at it after the meeting.
Turn it off.
When in doubt, pull the plug.
Okay.
Reboot.
All right, let's go get started. Welcome, everyone. Hope the land use meeting was productive. So first on the agenda, we got Jason Staley at Steiner Downs. Yeah, is he voting in it or?
No, he's supposed to be here. He confirmed. He wasn't out there when.
What's the market do today?
There's someone.
This might be.
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Everyone's coming early.
That's all right. Hey, how are you, Jason?
Well, I can tell you that I will never schedule meetings swiftly coming here in the dark
No.
ever again. That was one of the more nerve-wracking drives I've ever made in my life. A lot of winding roads, not a lot of light. So, lesson learned.
And it's raining.
And it was raining. The only good thing is I got no cell phone reception, so I literally couldn't call anyone. So I mean, that works good and bad. A lot of focusing on the road.
The little yellow line.
But if I got in trouble, probably not gonna be able to reach anybody. So, thank you, everybody, for having me here, and I really appreciate. My family had a medical emergency. My father-in-law had to get taken to the hospital last month. Thankfully, he's okay, but I really appreciate the council letting me present today. So, I wanted to kind of briefly start out with kind of the executive summary that I had sent to everyone. Markets have generally speaking moved up over the last month, although it's been a little bit more interesting the last week. But overall, where we finished 2023 was pretty interesting because it was really truly a tale of the first 10 months and 15 days of the year, and then the last 45 days of the year. And I think that was a lot of it was driven by the interest rate policy. And so you will hear, because this is an election year, everybody talking about November of 2024 and who's going to win. It'll be hotly contested. I believe we have the two nominees after last night. What I'm here to tell you today is that whatever happens in November, from a market perspective, as it relates to the council and the portfolio, the only thing that really matters is what comes out of Jerome Powell's mouth and whether we get 3 interest rate cuts to start to get throughout 2024. If we don't get 3 interest rate cuts, why we don't get them will matter. If we get more than 3 interest rate cuts, why will matter in terms of what moves the markets. But I can tell you the last 45 days of the year, performance really changed, where you saw a massive swing. When I came to the council, I believe in early October of last year, there were 3 asset classes that were positive: the S&P 500, international developed, and United States Treasury bills. That was it. Small caps and mid caps domestically negative, bonds negative, emerging markets negative, publicly listed real estate negative. And then with one shift in policy, where the Fed shifted and said, hey, we see 3 interest rate cuts in 2024, the markets took off. And you really saw, truly, 4, 5, 6 standard deviation type moves. And that, for those that don't know what that means, those are things that you don't see all the time, that we were seeing across asset classes on a daily basis. Bonds were up almost 7% in the fourth quarter. That's like a good year for equities. And so I think that when we think about what's going to move the portfolio, it's crystallized in the last 45 days of 2023. It's all about interest rates. So politics might be a lot easier to talk about, or not easier, but a lot more fun to talk about. But what's really going to move the market in the portfolio, it's all about interest rates. And it kind of started today. Chairman Powell was, I believe, in front of the House. I believe he goes in front of the Senate tomorrow. And the big takeaway there was he said that a soft landing is achievable, which is to say that they have tightened they've raised interest rates sufficiently to curb inflation. And now they can start to begin to unwind a lot of that monetary tightening, cut interest rates slowly, not so much as that they create another round of inflation, but to get to the kind of right sizing the economy so that things like mortgages become a little bit more affordable, things that are really interest rate sensitive. So from a standpoint of the executive summary, what we're seeing kind of moving here, moving into markets in 2024, a lot of it is based on rates. And what we've seen in the early parts of the year was that kind of a similar part from performance for the first 10 months of the year, which is that you have a few cloud-based or artificial intelligence-based companies really moving the market. And it used to be the Magnificent Seven, and right now there are only 4 stocks that are positive. Tesla's down 25% year to date. China's down, or excuse me, China. Apple's down 10%, 10 to 11% on the concerns about the slowing economy in China, and Google's also off because they had a little bit of a failure to launch with their artificial kind of intelligence product, but I think the engineers at Google are going to figure that out. But I think that when you look at what else is going on in the portfolio and what keeps me up at night is the reason that I also think there's a lot of opportunities outside of the US market. I am concerned about the narrowing of markets. So it used to be 7 stocks. Now it's kind of 4.5 stocks that are really materially moving them. And these are the stocks that are tied to artificial intelligence most intimately. These are kind of NVIDIA, which makes semiconductor chips that power the data centers that allow us to have Zoom meetings and use cell phones and things like that. And Microsoft, it's Amazon, it's Apple, or excuse me, Amazon, it's Facebook. Facebook decided to stop incinerating money in the metaverse, and they really leaned into some of their other some of their more cash flowing parts of the market, and they've done really well. But the narrowing leadership is kind of concerning, because if you look back in history, if you really are in this new market, it must broaden out. Equity bull markets die with the narrowing leadership. They continue to go on when there's more participants that go on. And I think that's why it's so interesting to hear not only what Chairman Powell says today and then obviously tomorrow, but whether we really see follow through. And some of these companies that face us as U.S. consumers most intimately, small cap, mid cap stocks, whether they really start to move forward. Because what we have seen outside of the U.S. is that it's been a really good story. International developed is our second best performing asset class. We have one of our managers is outperforming the S&P 500. It's up almost 8% year to date through yesterday. And the reason that that's actually performing well is because inflation is coming to Japan. And inflation is bad in an economy like the US, where everything kind of costs more. But if you had a 35-year deflationary trend, what's going on in Japan, some inflation is actually a good thing. And in addition to that, they're having some reforms corporately that we're actually feeling here in Pittsburgh. It's not out of the blue that Nippon Steel, a Japanese steel maker, decided to try to buy US steel when their regulators and the people that put them on an exchange where their shares can be traded have said you can't keep trillions and trillions of yen on their balance sheet. You can't trade at a level below one price to book. Like, you can't trade cheap. And I think that you're starting to see them use that cash more productively, which is what investors have been kind of hoping for. And you're starting to really see some follow through where the Japanese stock market hit an all-time high. It took 35 years to get there. I was 7 when, or 6 when the Japanese stock market hit an all-time high. It took them a long time to get back there. And I think when you think about what's going on outside of America, there's some really exciting opportunities. But I think that there's this idea that everything's kind of levered to the Fed. And when you look at the performance, fixed income, we got all of our performance in our fixed income in the last 45 days of the year. We got all of the performance in small cap, mid cap, emerging markets, a lot of the diversification that we have in the portfolio. All of that performance came in the last 45 days. And I think as we set up for the finishing of the first quarter and going into the second quarter, the first rate cut is supposed to be kind of May, June. So kind of at the back end of the second quarter. If that starts to get put off, I think you're gonna see some volatility coming into the markets and coming into the portfolios. But from a high level standpoint, that's both what moved the market in 2023 and what's moving the market now. And the last thing I will add is that as interest rates have come up, I think the 10-year treasury was close to about 3.8% at the close of 2023. It got as high as 4.3. I think it's now around 4.2%. The things that have done well as rates have gone up, kind of mega cap technology, things that can kind of grow at such a high rate that they can achieve that hurdle of higher rates. If you start to see rates come back, the cost of an NVIDIA super semiconductor chip is really not all that materially affected by the cost of interest rates, but the profitability of companies that have to pay floating rate debt. If you're paying 2% less on a balance of $2, $3, $4 million that you're borrowing, those companies are going to become immediately more profitable. And that's why kind of interest rates are going to be, what the Fed does is going to be the true story. So with that, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Unlikely we're going to get 3 cuts.
The Fed does not like to play politics. So 3 is what they said.
I know.
5 was kind of what Wall Street wanted, and I think Wall Street kind of figured out that they're not going to get it. We had a couple of hot inflation reports. I think 3 is the base case. I'm gonna listen to them, but I know we're not going to get more than 3.
Right.
The way that the data is trending, you could make the case that the interest rate cut in May or June might not be. They might not need to do it if the economy continues to, if it continues to sustain employment and inflation continues to kind of be around this 2 to 3%, kind of high 2s, low 3s. But, I think if we were to get 1 cut or no cuts, for markets to be positive in that scenario, we would have to get really surprising economic data, like really better than what we're experiencing right now. It's possible, but I think that's really the key juncture here.
Do you move forward thinking about the average, or what you think may happen?
Yeah, I think what we did, so you'll notice in the performance, we got a lot more conservative towards the end of 21. We took the police plan, which can be a little bit more aggressive because you can't take a lump sum out of it, lump sum distributions out of it. So we've always run the general employees to be a little bit more conservative. We actually brought them very close together and ran them and mirrored their performance. We actually got a little bit more aggressive in the police plan as we felt like kind of the worst of it was over. Like it's not the true hard landing scenario. So we really started to add to equities in a way, kind of the end of the 3rd quarter, beginning of the 4th quarter. And that's why you saw performance kind of, performance, a little bit of a performance disparity. I think on the fixed income side, we've moved more. We're kind of in the camp that we do think that rates from a trajectory standpoint are going to go down. We don't know when. So we moved some money out of kind of shorter fixed income and locked in yields for longer. I think that's one of the things that we've done. And what we also did was a lot of the things that protected us in 21 and 22, in terms of from an inflationary perspective, we went overweight real assets. It's like infrastructure, farmland, timberland, high quality commercial real estate, making the portfolios a little bit more conservative. If you go back and look, we reduced that exposure in February. We're going to reduce it again probably in April. And we're probably going to move those into kind of things that we expect to have longer, better expected rates of return. So to answer your question, yes. But I think that the 3 cuts is the base rate. Could we get 2? Yes. If we only got 1 or 0, I would hope that would mean that we've got really good data, really good economic data coming through.
Jason, you had mentioned that the bond market
Mhm.
in the last 45 days, the year
Yeah.
really took off. I kind of read that there's a lot of bond issuances.
Yes.
What was the driver for that?
So-
A lot of corporate debt and municipal debt.
Yeah, so a lot of corporate debt. So what happened, I think, as rates, when there was an expectation of rate cuts, I think that there was the feeling that kind of unlocked a little bit of, hey, things are going to be okay. Kind of the worst case scenario was off the table. And so you saw some refinancings going on where they were kind of terming out their debt. The expectation was in the way that the bond market was trading, if you think of like the United States Treasury, so if Franklin Park were to issue some 10-year debt, it would be based off a spread of the 10-year Treasury. And what happened was those were trading at fairly wide levels for the first 3 quarters of the year. And then they really began to tighten, kind of came in. And it wasn't just in investment grade, but it was also in kind of below investment grade. And once those below investment grade companies were able to refinance at really attractive levels, because the investor demand was, hey, things are going to be okay. Yeah, we'll loan you money at 0.5% less than we would have on an annual basis, and that was a really big piece of it. And investors were just feeling better about the bond market, and I think they were looking out and they were saying, okay, maybe yields go up a little bit more from here, and we could maybe try to wait and buy bonds. Right? We could try to as investors, but right now, if you look historically back, it's the best yields we've been able to get in 15 years, because now we have a Fed that's committed to not having 0% interest rates. Like that was the policy coming out of the great financial crisis, and they kept it anchored there really until COVID. And so now you have a Fed that has said, we're not going back there. And I think people are looking at saying, okay, well, if I can park money in a money market fund, then if you drive like I do to the airport, there will be, whether it's Dollar Bank or FNB will show the kind of the 5.15% 7-month CD. You can lock that in on an annualized basis. Now, you don't get 5%, but you get that annualized yield for 7 months. What investors were looking at was saying, okay, well, I can get that for 7 months. Or I can go buy like a Johnson & Johnson AA rated bond, and I can lock in a yield that's 5.2%, but I can lock it in for 8 years. In my view now that I feel like we're going to get that quote unquote soft landing, that's better than buying treasuries or like a CD. And that's one of the things that I would encourage, what we've done in the portfolio is kind of, we're not trying to time the rate market, but when we look at it from a probability standpoint, we do think the rates over time go down. And if you think of bonds like a seesaw, bond prices go up, yields go down. Well, in a money market fund, you're going to get that 5%, but you don't get any of the movement in the bond price. And in our view, we're going to lock in higher yields. And if they stay the same, okay, then we're great. We're going to earn them for longer. But if we do get those interest rate cuts, the bond prices move up, yields go down, and then we can start to take some money off the table and redeploy. But we certainly feel like locking in those yields makes really good sense. And for us as a group, when I first started coming here in 2017, our bonds were giving us 2% in a good year. So you were forced to take more risk to generate the return that we need to make the actuarial assumptions. Well, now the bonds are yielding 5%. You don't need to take the same amount of risk to get to the number that we need to get to make sure that these to make the performance bonus. And a lot of that you saw, like it wasn't just people like us, and significantly larger state pension plans, defined benefit plans from a corporate level. We're all doing the same thing.
Any other questions?
No, it's great.
Kathy, by the way, Kathy's doing a marvelous job standing in as the treasurer. So, well, taking care of the pension stuff. So I would be remiss if I didn't say that. So, she's been great in terms of getting us that information so that we were able to raise money, make sure that people get the pensioners get what we promised them. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. Thank you. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Almost happy, almost. And it's a green day too, so I'm back, my streak's back a lot.
Right.
Hey, all right, Sean Hyde. Candidate for planning commission and TAC.
Kathy wanted to do it.
Kathy, right?
There.
Yep.
Yeah.
We just have a speaker point in.
This one?
Yeah, it's just one. Hey, Sean, I'm Nita Allen, President of Council, with Ward One. Welcome to the borough, and, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves?
Max Yunker, Borough Solicitor.
County Secretary.
Going out to council.
Laura Check, Council.
Dennis O'Keefe, Mayor.
Julia O'Keefe, Junior Council Person.
John Meek, Council.
I'm sure it's smart about.
Regional Manager.
My name is Sean Hyde.
Oh, yeah.
Owenski is the.
Sorry, Luke. So Luke.
Hi, guys.
Represents Ward Two. Cool, so you were here, so glad for both planning commission and, staff. Which tell a little bit about yourself, short.
Moved to Franklin Park in 2017. Before that lived in Squirrel Hill since 2007. Came here to do my
Could
master's.
somebody move the microphone? a
Sorry,
little
sorry,
closer?
yes. I can talk to them, whatever you like. Generally not accused of being too quiet. Lived in Pittsburgh since 2007, Franklin Park since 2017, came to Pittsburgh to do my master's in electrical computer engineering. As they say, met a girl and stayed. My wife has a PhD in computer science from Carnegie Mellon University. I've worked in robotics since 2008. Lots of different projects, oil and gas, mining, disaster response, and then in 2015 left to help start Uber's self-driving car project. So sort of the genesis of self-driving cars in Pittsburgh. There then came 3 or 4 other spin-out companies of former Uber ATG employees, and did that until that entity was sold to one of our spin-out companies called Aurora. And since then sort of got back together with the same group that I was working with at CMU. And we now have a startup doing robotics in the food sector. Yeah, well, the robots are edible. What they make is edible. I don't know, I'm obviously very interested in technology, and also its applications in the world. But also sort of an avid home improvement person. Happy to learn and do stuff in my own home, whether it's cleaning up after a pipe burst and doing drywall and stuff like that, or building a cabinet to house the sort of plumbing equipment that was in the corner of the basement, stuff like that. And I'm kind of into that, and so I thought these were good applications of those interests. And I watch you guys on YouTube all the time, so it's kind of fun.
We're YouTube famous.
There's more than this.
Cool, let's go around, any questions?
Well, we have some very, very talented people on the borough staff, the manager, secretary, building inspector, Tim. And eventually they're gonna retire. We don't know when. Is there any robotic replacement? I'm sure we're gonna get fired with talent,
Well, I mean, I did disaster response robots, which is slightly different. I think there is some interesting technology in terms of summarizing information, you know, the stuff that's out there that's now what's been called generative AI, but essentially that's taking documents and being able to synthesize them and understand them. And you can play around with this just in Word and stuff like that, Google Docs, that actually being able to summarize documents and reading through the codified ordinances. It's challenging for me. It may not be challenging for everyone, but and so maybe someday this stuff, or the even stuff like the International Building Code or the Residential Code is tough to sort through, and maybe someday this sort of stuff, rather than Googling and finding the answer on forums from who knows who posted, being able to get, okay, well, this was sort of synthesized and here cited the source. And here's a link to the actual quote and that sort of thing. I think it's actually something that could help in the future.
I was being a little funny about it, but I think there's a lot of technology out there that And I haven't really, done too much dabbling in the AI stuff, but, you know, you hear it's even behind the scenes with Amazon and Google and it's not a bad, that's not a good example.
Well,
But it will be.
I mean,
And I think that some of that, you would think it's gonna bleed over into some of the, at least some of the more mundane things that people can do, and they can think about some more critical things.
this technology has gotten a lot of attention recently, but, you know, when I was in school, we were doing machine learning, it was just a different kind of machine learning. And then that was replaced with the buzzword from 8 years ago, neural nets. Everywhere everyone was talking about neural, it's just a different kind of machine learning. And what we're seeing now is with generative AI is yet another sort of evolution of where neural nets was and being able to procedurally generate the output. And it's that gigantic training set plus the procedural generation that makes it able to write responses. And that's really the new thing, sort of this textual understanding. Because I had a project when I was in school that was reading in text and trying to generate something that was in the style of that text. And it was extremely poor compared to what's available today. But, you know, it's all an evolution of the same sorts of things. The models are just enormous.
John, this might dovetail what we're talking about. They're talking about working on a new generation for the Bourgh website, which is what I think TAC has been tasked with. So does something like that interest you working on those types of projects?
I am interested in the usability and stuff like that of it. It's funny, my wife actually worked in human computer interaction. But I'm interested in the usability of it as a consumer of that technology. It has been 5 years since I dabbled in web design, so I'm not a technical source there, but I'm certainly interested in the usability of technology. And, you know, like our new robot that we've built in the food service industry is supposed to be run by folks. And that's a whole other challenge in terms of how do we design a user interface that is not for, you know, not only technology people who designed it and know it intimately and inside and out, but no, this has to be like, how do we design this such that normal people can use it, lay people can use it, and now there are people who specialize in that. We've hired a contractor to help us like get our ideas out in a way that is.
I think the one problem with the website that they need to look at is there's a lot of information there, and everybody wants, but sometimes it's not easy to find because there'll be 25 links on the one page, and you can read them all. I think probably what we need to do is get to the point where we have more of a search engine, because everybody's going under a different question. Somebody might have a building question, somebody might have a what's the policy on recyclables? I mean, there's a slew of information, and it's all on there. If you dig hard enough, but sometimes if everybody, you can't put everything on the home page. You've got to have like either a good search engine built into it, or you got to drill down to find what you're looking for. And even when I have a pretty good, I mean, I don't go on it every day, but every couple of weeks I'll go to look for something. And sometimes I gotta be honest, I have a difficult time locating exactly what I want. And it's not being critical of anybody, it's just that when you get something that has that much content, you have to be able to make it searchable, or in maybe a better way. I think so. That'd be something to tackle.
Sean, have you spent time on the website?
Yes, both researching the commissions as well as looking at the ordinances.
So you see the chat box.
I haven't used the chatbot, but I have seen it.
It's learning.
Go up there.
Why we ask for more?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously like the one big tackle there would be the user experience, as Tom's mentioned. I mean, I've had problems finding this as well. Just, I was looking for, what is the easement for all the documents, invisible documents, right? So it's, it gave me some other unloaded response. Finding it, Okay, so, any other questions?
Yeah, so we talked a little about TAC. You also did some research on planning commissions. That's something you're interested in working on as well. And
Yeah.
So why?
Well, and part of this is still me learning about the the responsibility of the planning commission is to review ordinances and especially, development plans and things like that, but I was a little confused actually as to, how that interacted with council in terms of, its recommendations, my
That's
understanding.
it, right.
Council,
They
yes,
can't
yes,
approve or
yes,
disapprove,
right.
but their job is to review the plans and when they feel that they've complied with the ordinances that are in place, send them up to council for a final review, and they'll say they recommend them for, for being approved or.
Yeah, and my interest there was sort of a fewfold. Obviously, we've seen a lot of developments even since I've been here, which is not very long compared to many people at this table, but seen a lot of developments come up since I've been here. I remember when we moved into our house in 2017, we found the paper map that we had used to move into our first apartment together. Because we didn't have smartphones when we moved into our first apartment, and we looked for our house on this paper map that we had from 2007, and it was a golf course. I live in Scarlet Ridge, so, and I have since then met several people who remember playing golf at my house. So, so obviously the design and implementation of these, I think, is super important, and looking through those and making sure, number one, that yes, everybody has complied with whatever ordinances we do have. And then number two, I know there's been a lot of chatter recently about, okay, but do we have the right ordinances? Because here's this development that may or may not be exactly what we're looking for, but it complies. So, and I saw there was a vacancy, and I figured there was help that could be had in that direction.
Absolutely. So if you've done the research, like these, both of these committees meet at least twice a month, and there's a certain number of hours that you feel like be available.
Yes.
You feel like.
Well, each one's one,
The other one. Yeah, sorry. I added them together.
Yeah, twice. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
On 2 different days, so luckily.
Is that precise? Does that time commitment concern you, or is that something? that's
No,
okay?
the time commitment is okay, and especially the time actually works out well, that my work is not usually this time period.
You have a lot of areas of expertise, so thanks for coming into this today. But what keeps you the most busy now in today's world?
Right now, it keeps me the most busy, my job. I've been doing 12-hour shifts at the restaurant, which is a very interesting thing. I never thought I'd be working in a restaurant.
But what about the project that you're involved in?
Yeah, so what we've made is recently revealed, so it's great, I get to talk about it. My mom didn't know what I was working on for a year and a half, drove her crazy. We've made a robot that is a bowl builder. So you can go on and order food that is in a cloud kitchen. So there's no place to sit and eat it. You can order for pickup or delivery. And there are 2 brands. So there's Tex-Mex style food and there's Mediterranean style food. And people cook the food in large batches, essentially, and load it into the robot. And then when an order comes in, the robot assembles the bowl of food, puts a lid on the bowl, drops a bowl, assembles it, puts a lid on it, and puts it in a bag and labels the bag. And then it's ready for someone to either pick up at the front or for a driver to pick up.
So the robot's not delivering it yet.
The robot is not delivering it. I did enough time of self-driving robots for the next several decades. I don't need to do self-driving robots for a little while. Turns out the world is chaotic and unstructured, and that's really hard.
Pittsburgh's great.
Get there. Well, we did driving in Pittsburgh and Arizona and San Francisco, and really the difficulty are the people. People are hard.
Do you mean the pedestrians crossing in front of the cars, or people driving?
Yeah, pedestrians, other cars, construction, all of, again, the non-structuredness of the world. But yeah, so you can order food from the robot. And it's just a really weird experience. So we're at the position now where we're trying to transition the system over to the people who cook the food and let them run it rather than having engineers.
Sean, do you have any last questions for us, or? I don't think so. Sorry, you're still behind.
No,
Sure, we appreciate you.
yeah.
So you're applying to both, right? For the next step too?
Discuss it amongst yourselves.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Don't forget your jacket.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you. Very interesting.
I mean, it goes down.
Yeah, eventually.
Well, okay, so he, yeah, he's gonna do it. He would not be the first to have
Choose one.
one of the both right late. Changes. Both right. Okay, and we said we have an opening on both. Yeah, so my perspective on fine, I think it's actually great having both.
Yeah. I'm good with it too. I think it's great that we can fill the spots and I think he'll bring a new perspective, just talking to him. I
Yep.
think would really-
Oh, yeah.
That would be great.
You do a lot of research on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way anybody can figure it out until they're actually there experiencing. it. That's what you know, for sure. Yeah.
Brian, good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, no objections to both.
Mayor?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
Okay, so.
Letters out.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sorry, you forgot about you.
It's okay.
You're good with?
Yeah, he sounded really good.
Add the motion.
And, okay.
You gonna do two separate ones?
Strange, but there's precedent for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, moving on, so, Bone World Charter update? Yes.
So, included in my report was, just a little additional background as well as a sample ordinance. Had been in touch with Al Sitnick, who is a assistant county solicitor, who was assigned to the elections department. He is familiar with the process, of course. He is retiring at the end of the year. There's another, assistant county solicitor is getting involved, Lisa Michelle, who I go way back with, back my clerk days. So, you know, he was on vacation last week or so. He set up a call this morning. I called, I got his voicemail. He's still digging out, but just in terms of timing, other scenarios or anything that he may have come across as turned in terms of tricks of the trade or things to watch out for. That's all I'm hoping to get from him, and also on timing. But I think in general, if you introduce the ordinance, the latest at the June meeting for enactment at the July meeting, that is enough time to have it submitted 13 Tuesdays in advance of the November election. That's the requirement. It would track with the circulation for nomination petitions or papers, I'm sorry, around that same time in August or so. Unfortunately, to double check, it's not 5 as the minimum like it is for authorities, 7, 9, and 11. So the draft that we prepared has 7, has the question set forth. I'm going to ask him if there's anything else that is needed in terms of submission, because usually there's a non-legal interpretive statement. I'm not sure if that's something we draft or if that's something that the elections division drafts, probably them. But that's just a clarifying question. The question that is on the ballot is just, should a government study commission be commissioned, and confirm that both the question and the positions are on the same ballot. So even if you vote no, you're supposed to still vote for
The commission
the 7,
member.
the commission members.
Yeah.
So it might be confusing, and I don't know what the track record is of how many ones get voted for, or Captain the Apple might know. But let the county worry about how that appears and shows up. So I hope to talk to him again when we do connect to see if there are any other tips. You know, there's a question of whether you do it this early, introduce it in March and pass into April. The elections division is going to be very busy up to the primary. Want to get lost in the proverbial shuffle. We also can't wait too late with the 13 Tuesdays before November. The election day is it being our deadline. As we said, it's too late for the May ballot. It could have been on there, even though it's a primary, similar to a constitutional amendment question, open to independents as well. But I think this time gives us time, start beating the bushes, start considering, you know, who the 7 or 8 or a minimum of 7 would be willing to circulate their nomination papers. Did have a question for him on, you know, how many signatures are needed for that, because you know, you get 10. You know, when I read this, it was talking about some, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're looking at me, I was wrong. I was thinking
No.
like school districts or something, but
Yeah.
yeah. But there seemed to be a higher standard based on the, you know, total vote count or less gubernatorial election, something. So we just want to nail down how many signatures are needed for.
We're not talking hundreds.
Yeah, it seemed like I double. No, that can't be it. That's all. Clarify that point.
Do we have to hold up on the advertisement and the eventual enactment thing, or is that ready to go? You just have some questions about the nuts and bolts of November.
Yeah, like I said, you know, if you did it, you know, it is lined up to be introduced and then advertised and then voted on, you know, unless you had changes to the draft ordinance. I just, because you have to transmit it within 5 days of enactment to the county, I don't want to get lost in the shuffle.
Sure.
Particularly as they're gearing up for May. No, it's April.
April now.
It's early.
It's an April primary.
So,
Okay.
Max, let's say the threshold's like 100 signatures to get on the ballot
yeah,
to be one of the commission members. Is there a maximum number? So is the way it's gonna be crafted? Yes, the borough should do this, and then the second question is, these are the 7 members or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or is it just gonna be a bunch of people, candidates, and choose 7?
no, it's gonna be tied together from what I understand. I mean, here will be the ballot question, you know, should a government study commission be formed for the borough of Franklin Park to study and recommend a proposed home rule charter? Yeah, so you're not voting on the actual charter, you know, yes, no, or here's your non-legal interpretive statement. What does this mean? Borough is considering a change from borough structure to a home rule charter, but this is setting up a commission to study the issue and make a recommendation later. You know, it probably says you must vote for, you know, regardless of how you vote, yes or no on that question, please select 7 from this list of potential candidates to fill that commission. I don't know if it's 14 spots maximum. Can't imagine they would let like 30 people put their names in. There's some type of limit, but those are the.
Yeah, we want 7 for the
Yeah.
commission, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a ballot, like North Carolina had a primary, my parents lived down there,
Yeah.
so that'd be. I think a ballot, that's like 17 people, or I don't know what this was for. So I don't know if there's like a max or something here,
Yeah,
like.
I mean, you know, for the general election, usually, you know, per party and who
Yeah.
you've got in through nomination papers and, you know, they might have the 2 spots even for, you know, the 1 seat. For this one, I think the minimum of 7. And I don't know, could you elect 4, you know, because you only get 4 people that circulate nomination papers, you know, you can get write-ins, you know, for this as well, but if they have 4, it's a quorum of 7, they could meet and fill the vacancies thereafter, but those are the type of practical things. And he might not know, never come up against it, and we'll be making it up as we go.
All right, that sounds good.
It makes sense to me, 4. 4, I don't know, point the other 3.
So you're gonna start the clock ticking on the 13, what's it, how many weeks or hours?
13 Tuesdays before the November
Yeah.
election, so when I did that, I mean, that's like late August, early September. I forget exactly where it fell, so you do it, July.
13 weeks, basically, 40. 13.
Max, have you heard of any municipalities who folks have voted no on this and never got any further
Yes.
than this? Okay.
There have been a couple, I don't know, maybe local. And there are certainly, yes, once the charter is in place, then you get some regular amendment ballots. You know, we want to change the home rule charter to do X, Y, Z, or see yard signs, vote yes on charter amendment, vote no on charter amendment, and sometimes those fail. I think most recently, something in Washington County, Peters Township. failed.
Moral of the story is hard to amend once you got something in place.
No, all right, I mean, it's just another process of having to go through and get it on the ballot. You don't need many signatures, I don't think, but you need to be, you know, at that point, a constituted council, a town council or municipal council to sort of authorize, pass an ordinance to put a question on the ballot instead of circulating petitions. Stay tuned.
Okay, that's good. Moving on to new business. The March 20th regular meeting agenda.
Yes, so you have it here. Kathy and I were trying to go for the record for the longest motion, history of motions, without being a resolution, thanks to Andy. Motion number 4. We are getting there, so my apologies in advance. Please have a glass of water, Andy, or whoever reads it as we go into it. So yes, it does address what we talked about last month in terms of appropriated funds, additional purchases for this specialized equipment. We have thrown in the citation to the Borough Code with respect to an exception for competitive sealed public bids. We've got that. We've got a proclamation, National Library.
There was a couple of optional things on there, I guess, we're not gonna do at this point in time.
Yeah, I recommended against them at this time. One was the, it's a hard of hearing system that was Yinson, which, you know, if we're working and we're using Zoom, you can actually listen to the meeting over a handheld device over here, but using Zoom and so on and so forth is my logic behind not necessarily doing that right now. Then you have to buy a certain number of headsets. So how many do you buy? Do you buy 1? Do you buy 20? How many people are going to need it? Then there was a remote control for a chairperson or somebody to help. Basically, they could shut the microphone off at the podium. I think we've had those situations in the past. I think it's been handled very well with the police here and so on and so forth and addressing that. So I recommended against that for the time being. And I can't remember just right off what the third one was. But there are things we could always come back and add to the system in the future. As tight as the budget is right now, I was just trying to stay well under the budget.
Okay, I was wondering about the chairman's remote. I don't think the hard of hearing thing would be something we would want to do initially, because that was, what's a little hard to figure out here is that he says the additional expense, I believe, for the hard of hearing, but I think it also applies to the chairman's remote, is $7,500 to install it. It's a $1,500 item, but then it says installation is $7,500. I'm not sure if that applies to one or both.
I didn't look at it that close.
Yeah. Well, let's just leave it go for now. We're getting the key pieces with the first two.
This will get us to be able, I can finally button up that room, put all the ceiling tile back up, and all I'll do, since we're not looking at doing the video at this point, I'll simply relocate the video camera to a better angle. And we'll go with the camera that we have for now, and if council wants to look at doing anything with additional cameras, like you originally talked about, 2 summers ago, we can always add cameras to this. We have the intelligent processing equipment in there that can link to it on the problem. But this will get us buttoned up to the hole until we get through some of these other things we have coming up, and we revisit that if we want to.
Thanks, Andy.
Any other questions?
Another one?
Yeah. Okay, all right. All right, so, that's the agenda for March 20th. Okay, so reports from staff, council staff.
Guess I'm first tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got two things to add there. First of all, I just want to let everybody know that, our nice paving job on Inglemoor Heights, Westview Water notified me today. They're gonna be digging in one area of the road, just up above the school. Apparently, I guess, during when they were putting taps in or whatever, I don't know whether the residents have, denied something at the time or whatever, but now they gotta dig an area of the road up, so. They're gonna be digging a section up and then have to do a repair, but they're gonna have to go by our specs on that. They're gonna have to, they're gonna be paving all the way out to the center of the lane, plus it's gonna be, the patch is gonna, I mean, when they're done paving, it's probably gonna be about 20 or 25-foot section they're gonna have to pave. And they're gonna be doing that on everything that they do from now on, so. I got quite a few, permits out to them. We haven't received any money yet, but, they're supposed to be sending us a check, on what they have so far. Because there's, I think 8 or 10 permits right now sitting there that haven't been paid for yet. That's their process in doing it. They have to get in there and do their stuff. And they said it's just a long process for them to go through and, fill them out and get them ready. But, so sometime we should see a, check for that. So People's Gas has been doing a lot of stuff in the areas too. So that they keep up real good on their permits. So they always, honestly, anytime they got anything going, they send out the information, send the money and a check, and so that's one thing I just want to let everybody know. So whenever you see that happening, don't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be our new street
Yeah.
opening ordinance in effect, right? And who checks off, says, okay, this is exactly the way it was.
Well, that's what I told them. I gotta talk to, I told them I gotta be in contact with the contractor when they're doing it.
Yeah.
And if they come in and do it, and it's not up to what I like, I mean, it's basically, if you read our ordinance, I mean, I can set on a pattern on how I want them to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have to, if they do a 1-foot cut, they have to do a 1 foot on each side of the cut just to blend it in, and then it has to be stretched out across a certain area all the way to the center of the road too, so it has a smooth transition, so. But I have, I'll keep watching anything they do, as long as they're in the asphalt, so. I'm not saying they're gonna get them done right away all the time, but, whenever they do the finished product, they're gonna have to do it to our specs.
And they don't open up the street until they pay the permit fee and.
Well,
the application.
Normally that's how it's supposed to be done, but they're backed up to Westview the way they claim. They say it takes them a good month or so before they get their process all done, so. People's, like I said, they come on, they do it, they're good at it. They have to check out right away, so.
Do you know when this is happening?
I didn't see a date yet, so they just notified me that they're doing the whole thing, so. I can, if anybody wants, I can put something out there, or have it maybe through Dawn or something, just let the residents notify or somebody that there's gonna be an opening on the road, so. But, probably the repair probably won't take long. It's just gonna be the time for them to come back out and do the finished product. It's, Usually like won't that. take
long, you talking days, or when you say it won't take long, you talking?
I think as far as repair, I would imagine it probably done within a day or two on the repair, digging or whatever they gotta do. As far as getting the asphalt done, depending on weather, depending on where the asphalt's available, whenever their contractors available, I imagine they probably get them where they're doing, a bunch of different,
It's very
projects for
short,
them. It's
very short term.
So, but I have no idea on that when they can, that's gonna happen. So. The second thing I have is, just let you know that the, concrete work is done over on Royal Oak and Squire Ridge over there. We were trying to cut them off, trying to get it, because we went through so much stuff there because we were trying not to do the concrete this year. They're getting out of that contract and they wanted the contract. So there was areas that were marked, there was back and forth, the amount of stuff that we went through. The bid that they had was for 3,000 feet. They ended up with 3,064 feet. So, it's just, that's just what we had, like I said, it just, the amount of openings that they had, the amount of markings that we had, it was just hard to keep up with them. And I think they knew it, that they were getting, he had to bid for 3,000 feet and he knew, he could get, probably right there, so that's, you know. So that's the only other thing that I had. If anybody has any other questions.
When do you think they'll be finishing the pipe on Cole? You know, if there's a timeline for the liner for the,
I haven't heard nothing yet. There's, the last I heard is they're coming out to do an inspection. He told me it was gonna take a month, probably a month and a half to get the liner made. You know what I mean, so, you know, it's gotta be pretty soon here, probably within the next couple of weeks, I'd imagine something's gonna happen, but I haven't heard anything lately on it, so.
that really looks good where they cleaned up that one side where everything comes in.
Yeah, the residents were happy about that, yeah, how that was done there, so.
That ought to cut down on the erosion from what's coming down.
Yeah, the big
From Matterhorn.
big stones on that one side, yeah.
Well, thanks for,
I'd imagine it was probably, I didn't go over that way today. I knew there was pretty heavy rain after work today and I'm waiting to see some, I didn't get any calls, so.
earlier in the day it looked good, but I didn't go up after the real heavy rain. Yeah, looks good, Gary. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
This month we have, an application for Deerfield Estates to go to the planning commission. The developer wants him to start phase 2, but he doesn't want to bite off too much or more than he can chew, so he'd like to split, phase into, section 2A and 2B, and this is kind of the way he has to do it because we just can't really do that project, so that's coming up for this month for the planning commission, and you'll have it next month. And the zoning hearing board this month has 2 applications, both for front yard encroachment. One is at, on Willow Lane down here by the Catholic Church on Rochester Road. The guy has a need to build a detached garage, and he lives at the back of the cul-de-sac, so cul-de-sac kind of swings into his yard and doesn't give him much room on the side of his house where he'd like to put it. The other one is the last house in Summerfields. Okay, in Summerfields. We approved that. He showed me that the house was on the 40-foot building line. I drove by when he started to frame it and I thought, this isn't right. So, we found out that it's about, 15 foot forward of that.
Wow.
Jeez.
Nice.
Wow.
So, he's gotta come and ask for help. The zoning hearing board. So we'll see what happens with that.
How far along is it?
Well, he
It's all
has,
framed up.
yeah, he has it framed up. You know, I didn't want to completely stop him during the framing. And I said, look, you know, you're at your own risk, but if we would have stopped him before he got, you know, it was halfway framed. And we would have stopped him, a good windstorm could have blown it out on Greenville Road or whatever. So we'll see what happens.
Looks like you did a beautiful foundation. All that board foundation looked like you did a real nice job.
Yeah, he does good work. There are some neighbors up there that, this just gives them something to complain about, I think. And
How does a mistake like that happen?
the surveyor put it on the floodplain wrong.
We'll hear about.
And
I did get a call from their attorney just giving a heads up, and this was before the meeting packet even went up, and we're just asking for, was the borough taking a position or what to expect, the scouting report on our zoning hearing board. He had been in front of the board before over the wood burning stove up a Hopkins Church Road. That was an enforcement issue. He acknowledged, he's like, I lost before there, and that one was a tough one, but you know, this is give me some of the background, and I gave him the Summerfield's story, you know, with the Governor's Drive and how we didn't take a position to or against that until developer came and said, oh, this thing's stupid and I'm gonna lobby people, so you never have to do that. At least gave him the scouting report on that one. I don't know if there's any desire to take a position one way or the other, but I told him Tim is there and is representing the borough, and if something goes wrong, we can appeal.
I'm positive DHB will apply to law. That's what I know.
And they had other, I mean, Harmon Farms, I think, had a similar setback issue.
Yeah,
So I thought it wasn't
I've honestly, in my years in doing this, this is the third time I've seen that. One was definitely on purpose, one was a mistake, and this is obviously a mistake. So, I don't know, it's gonna be a pretty big hardship in some manner to push that house back.
That's
But
why I told him to focus on, not if I ask for forgiveness or so, but address the requirements for a variance. Physical features of the property and give them something to think about.
we'll get the zoning hearing board and see what they come up with.
Yeah.
That's really all I have. at this point.
So there is a planning commission. meeting.
They'll be there.
See
You
you
don't get, you don't get a day off.
All right. Thank you.
You have my report. The only extra things we had and I see Luke's online. The poles up on field 3, the wooden poles were all inspected today. We should have a report back, what do we say, 7-10 days? 7-10 days, which will give us a better idea for the, Baseball Softball Association to move forward, or how they would like to proceed with the lighting project if we then approve. And then tomorrow morning, we will get our first half of the delivery for Acorn Playground. So partial delivery tomorrow, and then the other one should be about a month behind. We've delayed it as long as we can delay it.
Delivering to Acorn Park.
Right to Acorn. We're gonna put it probably on the old deck hockey rink for now. We gotta see how heavy the truck is coming in. We may also put it down in the circle. But it is all crated. We're gonna fork it off, and it should be just fine until we're ready for it.
Okay.
It's all wrapped. There's no reason for us to go into it and expose it. And that's all I have extra.
Thanks, Zach. Can you let me know when we hear back about the polls, please?
You don't have any concerns about leaving it there?
I mean, you're several thousand pounds. I mean, someone's gonna have to come in there with some kind of forklift to load it, and a very heavy truck to get it out of there. That would be
I was thinking more like damage it. Same situation.
same, yeah, they would have to break through the crates to get to it. I mean, and we can take daily trips out there just to make sure no one's touching it. I mean, the cops do still patrol through. We're gonna gate the front end as well here, not necessarily obviously tomorrow, but in the next few weeks, we'll get a gate up across that as we get more into the projects. So we're gonna do our due diligence, but for the most part, not too worried. Yeah. Yes, you always have that possibility, sure.
There's such bright live snakes on the side.
Yeah,
Yeah. The only concern with crates is the curiosity
Yeah.
attraction to that, but I'll let the guys know that that's what's down there, and they'll do extra patrols down there. When we can, we'll talk about getting cameras put in that park as well.
Yeah, which is already should have been on, I think, when we wrap up by the end of the year. That'll be taken care of as well.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. President, I had a quick question for Tim. I made a note, if it's okay. Cool. It's a real quick one. And I'll show it here. I'm just curious, in the building inspection report printout for January 2024, which is, it's PDF page 73 in the packet. I'm thinking it's a typo, but I'm just wondering if it might change the database information, because there's Glam to Go, line 1, 2563 Grant School Road. Then Glam to Go, 2463 Grant School Road. Same apartment, same number 102, whatever. So I'm just wondering, is this something that's gonna affect the database for the cumulative information for that address?
No, actually, this is just something that we type up
Okay.
after we take our written ledger,
Okay,
my pen and paper, and make it look a little nicer, but I'll check that out to make sure that there's no.
that was it. I just,
Yeah, yeah.
you know the rule, garbage in, garbage out. If we're making a database, I want to make sure that it's, that's all. That was it.
Yeah, cool. All right.
I got my report for the parks and the golf course. Yeah, if you've read, the golf course hasn't had its phone number for relatively a little over a month now. I did talk with Consolidated about 5 o'clock this evening, and we should be able to, and everything looks to be good to be able to port those two numbers over. So that we should have our phone line back up on the 14th now, through Comcast. It's been definitely a month-long issue between Consolidated and Verizon. So that we will keep our current phone number that we've had for 30+ years. We will, because there was, up until today, there was a good chance that was not going to happen. So, got working with the person I spoke with today, gave me a lot of information that I thought was right. And then she's going to follow up with all our other Consolidated accounts, because realistically happen with those as well going forward through Verizon. Basically, Verizon's canceling out all their copper line. And that's what happened at the golf course. And they just, January 29th, Verizon shut it off and it was no more. So, but it's been a mess, but it seems to be resolved on the 14th. For the golf course. Golf course was open over the weekend. It was very nice. Had a decent 3 or 4 day run. Not so much today. And going into next week, 10 days, it doesn't look up and down with the weather, but it's a good start so far on the golf course side. The only other thing I had with the parks is Old Orchard, the old pickleball courts where the nets used to go into the ground. The caps stick up about 1.5 inches where the sleeves go in. And there's a lot of kids that play in that area now. If I'm able to remove those old sleeves from the netting for now until we decide what we're doing with that area. It's like a trip we have the kids that are running and playing with their bicycles in that area. I mean, we can always put them back later, but I feel safer with the safety of the kids running around in that fenced area. We took those.
What will be involved in getting?
Just cutting it out and just asphalting those little patches. They're only like a 3x3 patch, but it's a 2-inch sleeve that sticks out of the ground about 1.5 inches, and we have a cap on right now.
Sounds like it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, we submit our report. I just have one update to it. So just to kind of add to Gary's update on the curb program, we did receive a final payment from Colombo. So assuming Gary doesn't have any outstanding items, we'll get that process.
I have all the payroll and stuff like that. I'll get copies of all that stuff.
Okay, yeah, we'll get that
And then
process.
the numbers were all good, everything matched up on what we had versus, our guys measured it out, they measured it out together, so.
Okay,
Yeah, everything's good there.
yeah, we'll get that process and send over, and that should close that one out. That's all I had, but I'll have to take any questions.
Yeah, my report, the only thing I wanted just to add is, with the DUI task force that we got the resolution to join, they reached out, they're going to do their first enforcement on, the 16th. And it's going to be like our area of the North Hills, which is going to be a roving patrol detail. And so we're going to participate, with that, but it's going to include our state roads. So how that's going to work is the officers from the North Hills DUI task force are going to come out and mark cars in uniforms and saturate particular areas to cover the state roads and make traffic stops looking for DUIs and take action like that. So that's scheduled from 8 till 1 on the 16th, which is St. Patrick's Day weekend. So I'll give you guys a report when we find out, how successful that is and what the consequences are. But that's a roving, it's not stationary.
And there'll be other cars besides ours.
Yeah, it's Pine, Marshall, Bradford Woods, basically everybody around here.
If anybody has any questions on the report on that. Otherwise, that's it.
Awesome.
I have my, report. I think the one item I forgot to add, in the zoning hearing board appeal by, Free Sci Investments, the convenience store, we entered a notice of intervention to participate, has not been scheduled for a status conference. Spoke with Gary Gusher, sort of supporting the decision from the zoning hearing board. Nothing to report other than that. See what they decide to do, and I think this is one that the judge just needs to decide.
Okay, sounds good. All right, gonna stay. Yeah, you're all welcome to leave or stay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so next item, ADA requirements for accessing public building, public meetings.
Public meetings, yes, so one of the gift that keeps on giving with 50 employees, and it kind of surprised me that that was the trigger for this provision of the ADA. It's a public building, we have, accessibility, for things like that. And regardless of the size of the population, it's the 50 employees that add additional provisions with respect to accessing public meetings. And so you might even see, if you're looking through the legal notices for the newspaper, still do that. Some municipalities have, please contact our ADA coordinator if you have any questions with respect to attending a meeting. So because we're of that size now, we do need to start including that on our public notices, both the legal notices, the newspaper, webpage, other sources as well. But we do need to identify an ADA coordinator to handle a call if somebody does come in, or otherwise communicate that we need an accommodation for a public meeting. The borough manager, in terms of that, we'll have to consider a motion to name that position. It has come up before, particularly with the new technology at public meetings. Some people thought, well, that's accessibility, and if somebody is hard of hearing, we can do subtitles through YouTube, and you can see it as it's happening, right there in the meeting. You can have it broadcast in the meeting room, and they can see it that way. Unfortunately, according to federal enforcement action, there was a borough and municipality in Pennsylvania that had that requirement that was found not to be sufficient for a resident who was hard of hearing. They did need to make accommodations for an interpreter for American Sign Language for meetings that he or she wanted to attend. It was part of a larger settlement agreement. So it is real, it is happening. That was in the last 2 or 3 months or so, just sort of timing for our discussion here. So yeah, right now, it doesn't mean that we need to have American Sign Language interpreter or other interpreters or other accommodations, every meeting doesn't need to change, the setup that we're talking about here. We have the capability to do it. And we have to have requests and a need for it, then we do need to respond and accommodate that. And this part is just setting up the process. We can also prepare a resolution, because it's really a policy for dealing with, either disputes or requests for these types of public accommodations that are different from the parking, accessibility, and the bathrooms, and the typical things you think about with ADA. So that's if they're okay with that, we'll proceed with putting that together, and also having that ready to be approved, or probably be reviewed at the April meeting. Save time to look it over.
So this then raises the question I've seen you probably not too. Is our website compliant with the ADA? I mean, usually the service provider takes care of that. Is that
Usually, and I did do a check when those really did flare up, and there is some, because we use Civic Plus and others, they have certain features. I don't know what the current state that it certainly has died down, but you still see them sometimes on the daily docket report. So same plaintiff, same law firm.
Yes. Collecting attorneys.
It is a good question, and this, feeds into the discussion on the webpage and social media. And this is the emerging area, even for municipalities, in terms of website data collection. What are we getting, from information? Chatbot needs to be revealed. We have put together a rudimentary privacy policy and a right to know policy for interactions through the web page when people are using the more online forms and online features. But maybe it's a good segue into social media. We do have, we're putting together a social media policy for one of our larger municipal authority clients. They have run into issues with the rogue commenters, former employees, things of that nature that come along with increased social media presence. So stay tuned for emerging technologies.
Which is
I know.
Excellent. Okay, sorry.
Yes, nope, that was it.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Look forward to that. So, the next item, social media presentation. Where do we have? Okay.
Okay, well, I don't have anyone to present right now,
Okay, yeah.
as you may have noticed.
Yeah.
I've reached out to two people who can come, hopefully one of them will be able to come speak to us about social media as we start to put policies together, for us and for employees, however we want to figure that out. And then also maybe just some best practices as we post either officially as Central Park and for us as council members, to think about if we're gonna do that, how we want to do that. And I know that you've mentioned the police department is interested in doing that also. So hopefully when we get someone to come in, hopefully at the next meeting, we can kind of cover just kind of at least preliminary matters, best practices and things to avoid and kind of setting up some policies.
Yeah, the thing is that I'd be interested in for that is, what is our obligation for removing profane or untrue statements from the comments? Because I've looked into this, I know that we can remove them but we have to retain them. And, so anybody who has information on the guidelines, that's primarily what we would be concerned about. So, but thank you.
Yeah, and it could be like an informational thing, kind of like adding words, maybe percent about the trails and whatnot. Very basic. Just a general question, and that's what I do. Privy this or no, but can posts be set to like no comment or like as in it's just an announcement? If it's coming from like the borough or the police department.
Right.
So you have comments like they,
Yeah.
disparaging comments. Or something.
I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but yes, that is one of the topics. Either allowing no commenting or selective commenting or just going over and regulating comment and things of that nature. That we have folks in our firm that they do, and the emerging technology groups that are more able to speak to those types of issues and have model policies and have the issues, because we have had a couple flare-ups. We have a generalized statement on the Facebook page about what types of comments will be considered to be deleted, and issues when you have those sort of nonsensical ones that kind of come, and then it's kind of, well, what are they going to do? Is this a First Amendment targeting type of a situation, or is this just messing around and no harm in deleting it because it's nonsense? But yeah, we're dealing with speech just like we talked about with the signs, and it is a delicate tightrope.
You mentioned your firm has done model policies for other municipalities that potentially
Yes,
could be applicable here.
I would say. Yeah, finalize those. I mean, they're in draft one. I
Alright,
guess
draft one,
last
okay.
week was we were outside.
Rather than having the comments posted on the page, could they be delivered to the borough by email, not be publicly posted for response.
I don't know if that. If formatting exists, through Facebook to sort of funnel things, because I don't think it would be, because Facebook wants the, the ones that get eyeballs, the ones that get a lot of thumbs down or thumbs up and, start generation, but they don't like to sort of have you put information there on the page to direct it somewhere else. They want eyeballs.
I guess it depends what it is, like, if it was like a public event that's coming up, and
Yeah.
had it out there, and then somebody's, for more information, send an email to Lincoln, rather than, as Lieutenant Snyder said, to having to deal with.
Well, that's not how social media works. No,
I mean, you put into that sense, like if you disable comments and you have some comment that refers people to email, like they would have to. I don't think they could click through that and submit something through Facebook that comes to us. They would have to grab or copy.
It's a mess.
Open it.
Yeah, so for Instagram, you get the post, you can turn off the likes and the comment. I mean, it's gotta be uniform, can't be just like,
Yeah.
this post, a lot of commenting, then this post, no commenting, so something's gonna be uniform. But you can turn off commenting, so it's just an announcement. Facebook, looks like you have some ability to do that. But in either sense, in either situation, if you do wanna contact for more information, you can use the messaging function in
Sure,
your app
messaging,
to message the person that runs the account.
But the other thing is, the way Facebook algorithm works is that if there is no activity on the post, it's likely that it's not gonna be visible to people who would be interested in it. It kills it. In other words, posts that are the most popular are
Yeah.
the most seen, and the ones that have no activity, nobody.
You can still like it, but it
Yeah.
just won't show the count.
That's right.
Or
Yeah.
who's like.
But commenting is what pushes it to the top of the algorithm. So, yeah. That's that.
All right, cool, more to come on this.
Okay.
All right.
Are you leaving?
Yeah, that's all.
Hey, Keith. Lieutenant?
Managers report. Reach.
Okay, DCNR grant applications. Last year we applied for, I believe, 4 grants. Turned down on all 4 applications. I did have a conversation with our local DCNR rep. She did recommend that we go ahead and apply again for the Blueberry Hill Park Playground grant. She said that definitely was a finalist. They were gonna recommend it to National Park Service for Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. But it just was a matter of numbers, and it didn't get chosen, but she said it was a strong application, we should go ahead and apply again. I'll just need a little bit of an upgrade on the costs involved with that. I also talked to her about our application for upgrading or updating our Parks, Rec, and Open Space Comprehensive Plan. And she did point out some weak areas in our application. One of them being that I simply asked LSSE for an approximate amount that it would cost to do it, and then I put 50% down is what we're asking. And they want to see a detailed schedule for what we're going to do as part of this plan and how much it will cost. So included in the packet, I reached out to HRG since they did our comprehensive plan and asked them to give me an estimate on what it would cost for them to develop that for me so that I could include that in the grant application. They said it would be $4,000, would have it ready by April 3rd, which is the deadline to apply for the grant. So council is okay with that. I think we do need to upgrade or update our comprehensive plan for our parks. We purchased a number of new properties. There are lots of things we want to do with our existing properties. And we also want to find out from our residents what they want from our park scene. So HRG, $4,000. They would work with us to put together the overall plan. That's not the comp plan itself. That obviously will be an RFP, same as our comp plan was that we just did with Ohio Township. And they understand that this is just for them to give us professional guidance and preparing the information we need for the grant application.
the deliverable that they would give us, it's basically the detailed project and like.
Just how much it's gonna
Exactly.
cost.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's gonna
These are the various phases, this is how much of it costs, so that DCNR can look and say, these guys know what they're doing. They-
Right.
this is-
We're gonna give them money and they're gonna spend it on this, and this, yeah. That makes sense.
How much of your borough's time do they need to come up with this?
I'd probably spend a couple hours with them, and I would do the actual grant application myself, I did it last time. So it'd be a couple of hours of my time, then they would put it all together for us.
They even have it by their
Yes.
grants due.
Yes. Yeah, so we would actually, if council approves it, we'd be ratifying it, in 2 weeks. Because they would need to start tomorrow.
Oh,
You kind of like the, something
Yeah.
retroactively.
Yeah, we don't want to wait 2 weeks and then have them start it.
Well, it makes sense to me that we're gonna pay $4,000 to try and get this much more money. I think it makes sense to me.
Yeah, we'll be asking for 50% of what the total projected cost
Yeah.
for the thing will be.
Cause that's how the grant works. It's
Yeah.
not, we're not just picking 50%.
And
Yeah.
we intend to do a more robust comprehensive plan this time. I'm actually reaching out to the folks who run Fallingwater, Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. They actually do a lot of environmental work on parks plans for municipalities where they would come in and look at all of our properties, do things like tree inventories, and make recommendations on practices like returning lawn to nature, that kind of thing. So that would be incorporated into this as well as part of our grant application. And again, we'll be asking for 50% of that total cost as a grant.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and when HRG give you the source files, so they use the data for this.
Yeah,
It would be like a PDF, and we can't like reuse it.
Yeah, what they do for us in this case, it really wouldn't be something we can use later on. I mean, it's just laying out the steps we would take. So,
It's a template that we.
Yeah.
That we need.
right, when we put together our RFP for the actual plan itself, we would use what they've given us as the way we want to plan to work.
We can extract the data from the PD.
Well, just the framework.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we don't have anything, and this is a good starting point. I think it's value added. I think you probably recycle it. I think it's, what do you guys think? There. This is the HRG, it's 4K for them to like.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. They did a good job with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sure do.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. We will get to work on it. And then the next item is the Acorn Park project update. We're still waiting, for a response from DEP to our response to their 5-page list of technical deficiencies in our plan. Background of this, we had to go through the Conservation District first, and so we, LSSC sent the application to the Conservation District. They came out back with their 5-page list of deficiencies. We addressed all of them. They said, okay, this looks good. We'll send it along to DEP. Then DEP came back with another 5-page letter of deficiencies. They've all been addressed, so we're waiting for DEP to come back. Hopefully say we've addressed all of their concerns and then grant us the NPDES permit. We cannot start moving any dirt until we get that permit. And our DCNR grant, which is about $662,000, we've got to have the work done by the end of this year. The GEDTF grant for $215,000, we have until April of next year. And GEDTF, we did give word that they completed their environmental review. They have sent me the contract documents for signature. So that's good. We've gotten that hurdle out of the way. So it's all at the DEP now. In the meantime, Jim and his crew marked trees that will have to be removed as part of this. They have white X's on them. Did a walkthrough with the members of the EAC 2 Sundays ago. I told them that we would plant 3 new trees for every tree we take down. And we will keep to that.
How do you feel about that? 3 new trees for everyone.
They were mostly okay with it. And you can get trees from Tree Pittsburgh that are $4 a piece and they're native grown and all that good stuff. And we bought trees from them in the past, so we think we can make this work. All those trees will be planted. A lot of them be understory trees planted throughout Acorn Park, so it'll look nice. So I didn't attend the EAC Monday night, so I don't know if I have total buy-in on that, but we have to move forward and it's an improvement to the park. So,
Just the only thing that I heard because of the AC meeting was removing 75 mature trees. What's that all about? So we're talking about it now, that's fine. And then secondly, whatever we do, are we informing the neighbors around Acorn Park? Or we have some special notification?
yes, we'll be
possible
sending,
through?
sending letters to them and I'm sure we'll hear about that as well.
Yeah.
But again, I mean,
They're removing the 75 mature trees is because of the overhaul of the,
yes,
the landscaping.
Yes. And some of them are dying anyway, some of them are leaning,
Mhm.
some of them are close to power lines, so this is an improvement to the park.
In the ecosystem. And the overall ecosystem.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be introducing diversity to the ecosystem as well when we'll pick tree varieties that make the most sense, like along the road, there'll be trees that grow only 30 feet tall, for example. We'll be introducing trees like hawthorns that have flowers for the pollinators, berries for the birds that aren't there right now. So these are overall improvements, and yeah, a few trees will have to come down to make that.
Do we have something about this project on the website?
I don't think we've an update on it yet.
Okay. Might be a good idea just to give an overview of what's happening there.
It's in the newsletter.
Yeah,
And it's been in the newsletter for the last couple of years because actually, we applied for this grant in 2020.
The specifics, like the taking the 75 trees down and why that's happening and all that, that's all.
leave that number out.
Yeah,
Well, it's getting around.
but they actually counted them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't trust me, so they did.
But just even on the website,
I don't know
you'll
what
have
to say.
kind of like
I
a,
know.
Should we just shut down all progress in the borough? Should we simply say?
No, don't get frustrated. No, if this is gonna make a better park and a more healthy park and healthier trees and everything, this makes perfect sense. You're explaining why it's being done. We need an explanation.
We got help from certain AC members for taking down some dying cherry trees in Old Orchard Park and put in the memorial pollinator garden. I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta agree with Laura, like, it might be a good idea to like, just put a high level data projects. And also like point out the pros.
and maybe a few like milestones that are coming up. Not necessarily dates, but this
Yeah,
is
just like-
the next phases of the
Quarter,
project. of the project.
Yeah, this,
Very, very simple.
because that's really what is going on. A total lack of understanding, even though you put the information out for 2 years now, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
away from power lines,
Yeah.
free,
Yeah,
the things that like, the word doesn't get out once.
yeah.
But,
Because it sounds like a really good project. It sounds like, there's a lot of thought that's going into this. Yeah.
Well, this way we can say, this is what we're doing, instead of focus being on, we're taking out 75 trees out of the park.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
We reached,
Compared to how many
we
were
waited
there.
until the end of the year, for the chief.
For the EDC environment.
We
We will have some.
The city, it's a jeopardy.
I don't think so. No. It's moving some dirt around, the trails themselves. We're gonna have further discussion on that. We talked originally about the trails. We want to make 5-foot wide trails. We talked about using millings, but the more I hear from people who actually go on trails, millings isn't a good idea. But maybe you're better off using bark mulch, but we're gonna talk that through. Talk to Jim because he's got to maintain him, talk to Zach because he actually does off-road biking, that kind of stuff. We'll figure all that out. Again, we're gonna have bridges across the streams where right now bikes have to ride through the streams, people have to jump on stones. We're gonna have a rain garden there, we're gonna have a bicycle pump track, we're gonna have an outdoor classroom, a new playground.
And for all that, we got grants worth $877,000 that are gonna get poured into the park. I mean, there's a lot going on. It's really positive.
And the playground equipment's, as we heard tonight, is starting to be delivered. The pump track is scheduled to be installed in the fall, and that's just taking dirt and mounting it up.
the biggest issue with the tree number is two of the biggest population of trees, one's where the water garden has to go, so those folks have to go, and then right now, there is no parking lot in the current playground, so there will be, I think there's 22 parking spaces, and the entrance moves. So it moves closer to Locust, so you need the sight of vision to be able to pull out them real big tall ones that are right up against the road. And we've had some oak wilt issues there over the years. We've taken quite a few out with upset neighbors, but once you get the oak wilt, they're very tall, but they're not very good trees.
If you were to look at them,
I mean,
they look like Q-tips.
and you try to save one that's that tall and take everything else out around it, then that one down the road it's not gonna withstand wind, because it was protected for years, and now you have structures there that it could potentially fall on at that point, so it's a build back better, more, in most cases.
So it sounds like it's a public relations thing that's going on, not a positive project.
Although some of it is, there are people who do not want the tree.
Ever.
Period.
Ever. But for the most part, I think the issue is they don't want a project where all the trees are cleared off the property to make room for progress again. So it sounds like a public relations thing.
You're also tearing up the asphalt and turning it to nature.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff going on there. So I wouldn't get frustrated. It's a public relations.
Could be worse. We were gonna log this entire. Only doing 75.
Well, that's what somebody actually said at the ESC walkthrough, and said, at least you're not logging.
There you go. There's your headline.
At least we're not.
Yeah.
But then other people said, have you found out if anybody to come in, they might want to pay for these trees when they come.
After they're cut, or?
Yeah.
What do we do for the tree? Do we do anything?
We want to see if there are some that we could possibly use to make benches. We may be able to use some as trail guides.
Yeah, trail guy, I was out in Denver, their city park, they'll bury them, mix some, sculptures out of them, and or for kids, like stepping stone type things.
We want to try as much as we can to utilize some of the trees, at least that are there.
So, we'll get it done, we'll leave them in, long form, log form for now until we know for sure. The ones that can be reused or repurposed.
That'll be the first thing they'll have. We'll actually hire somebody to come in and do that and just stack the logs for us away from where the construction.
Yeah. And then you mentioned mulch, maybe some of it can be used for your mulch.
Oh,
plants.
The wood chips.
We're going to keep all the chips there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is information we can share with the public.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let them know, not only like, just,
Yes.
we'll make good use of that.
Yes. So the EAC is actually going to design the area along the road, including the current entrance that's going to return to nature. We're going to decide what trees get planted and what shrubs get planted.
That all sounds great. Yeah.
Compromise.
Yeah.
Hey, that's my.
We can and that's, did you guys like my stuff?
It's going in tomorrow. CEC got me the completed application, so I can submit it.
So we've been on schedule for the next board meeting.
The next board meeting is in May.
So everyone's aware of like PennDOT and what's happening there. Okay. All right, anything else? All right, so, portion from council mayor, Tom?
No, I was thinking earlier, we had the land use committee meeting right before this. One of the things I would like to see that we could do better with, and it's an ordinance related, Brian, this might be probably not really land use, but we had that situation with a home over in the second ward that has all the overgrown grass in the car, and remember the home, we couldn't even find the homeowners until recently. And then that's not personal to me, but the house that had the fire next to me, we said it might be years before, if we couldn't find the owner, before something could be done. Is there anything we could put in our ordinance to give the borough a little bit more ability to address those kind of unfortunate situations when they occur, or is there state or other statute law that precludes that?
Yes, you can always, look at areas to improve on sort of blight remediation. One that is getting more traction now are land banks and conservatorships. Essentially, either the municipality or a nonprofit or somebody else identifying a abandoned property essentially can petition to have it put into conservatorship, and there is a process by which the owners are attempted to be located and notified, and it's sort of a judicial oversight over either a rehabilitation plan or potentially demolition, more geared towards rehabilitation. They haven't have all the kinks out yet. There's still issues with respect to them. Would be considered. It's usually something at a little more higher volume, and it is a problem statewide, and so legislature has come up with sort of blight plans that have really addressed all the issues that are intertwined. So like denial of permits across the state if you have unresolved building code issues, things like that.
I don't think we have a lot of situations in the borough, but when we have them, I know the one over in the second ward there, it's been there for many, many years. And we've been cutting the grass, and of course we follow every time we cut the grass against the property owner, and it just would seem like, if I had my brother, just some way that we have a little bit more capability to address those situations when they occur. I mean, I don't want to micromanage how somebody takes care of the property if they're, but when it's totally not being taken care of at all, to the detriment of everybody around it, it'd just be nice to have a.
Yeah, it's hard, you have to go to a court order, don't you, Max? You have to have try to do a public
For
notice and
that,
everything.
for the conservatorship or
Yeah.
otherwise,
I mean,
condemnation of the structure is there as a possibility, provided you give notice or otherwise. The issue that we've come into, is just because it's been abandoned and has all those other issues, it can still be structurally sound and not need to be taken down. And we have taken down some houses, not Tyvek house, but a couple other ones, Mr. Anderson's house, Reese Run, or the one next to it too. And so, but I mean, it's certainly something, you might at ALOM, there's usually some session, the next big thing with respect to it, or in other types of LGA or missile groups. I haven't seen much from the Boroughs Association. Peace Outs puts some out for training sessions or updates or the state of dealing with blight. Hey, they just ordered that Century 3, I think, can finally come down, but at least we're not dealing with it.
about 20+ years.
Yeah, that's a good point. Some sort of blight ordinance.
Yeah.
There might be just something to throw out there.
You're right.
Yeah. And the second thing I wanted to mention, I think we talked about this, in fact, we got the letters about consolidated communications is discontinuing the TV. It's the 3rd of April, I think, over in our area. And I had already been in the process of trying to get better internet, which I did through Xfinity. I just subscribed for their internet. And but I just really thought, I think a lot of people are going to be, if they don't, I don't understand why Consolidated was allowed to do what they did. They basically said, we're not going to offer it, and we don't even have internet for you to stream TV available in the borough either. So they basically kind of put themselves out of business. I guess we can't control that.
That's the beauty of capitalism.
Yeah, and I mean, they did do some of their fiber up on the top of the hill about a year ago, and I keep calling them, when are you gonna run fiber down here? Put clips on the poles almost a year ago. Nothing's happening. So today I saw a truck pulling fiber down on Wexford Run. I thought, oh, here's something coming along. About 4 hours later, I go back out and there's the same truck. They're still working. And there's 4 Xfinity trucks all around it. They're working. They're pulling fiber for Xfinity. But Consolidated just kind of abandoned that whole section of the borough.
We have no control whatsoever.
You can, so I thought it was a very poor thing they did. They take away the TV, but they don't give you the capability to continue it. So really telling everybody, we don't want your business anymore. So I don't know if we'll get complaints from other residents or not when that actually occurs, so.
Direct them to the PUC, that'd be their normal complaint.
I mean, so on a personal level, what I did was I have 500 gigabit or megabit internet through Xfinity, and it's like $35 a month. It was a half of what I was paying them for 20 megabit. So it's 20 times faster and less than half the cost. And then had to go out and like, I chose to try one. I never streamed TV before, but YouTube TV has a pretty good selection of channels, 100 channels or something. So I said to my wife, let's try that. So, I mean, but it was kind of forcing everybody to leave them totally. And then you know, trying to maintain the same home phone number we've had for 45 years. It was through them. So we were able to do that and move it over to the cell phone number. But all the problems that they're causing by really just kind of abandoning the area, and they were knocking on everyone's door a year ago. Here's our 5G and fiber, we're coming down, we're gonna take care of you. They wanted you to pre-sign us. I don't know if they're gonna continue to service the rest of the borough or not, but I know it's only one corner that really affects, but I heard Jim saying something about they I believe he said Consolidated was coming over to the golf course.
Yeah, we have consolidated
But they
some
never
of our
served the
borough
golf
accounts. We would be more than happy not to ever have to use consolidated.
It was horrible. It was terrible. But it takes that whole section where we're at, you're really down to the Xfinity. You only have one vendor.
That is entirely the PUC. We've got
And there's a lot
nothing
of
to say in that.
yeah, there's a lot of places that just have like one vendor. I mean, when we moved here, the BIOS, Summit Spring Ridge, it's been 15 years, and BIOS was just getting wired, as we were building up a neighborhood. And so the Xfinity was like the one, well, it was Comcast, was the only true high-speed internet provider. It was cable modem, so it's coaxial. We're talking 20 megabits per second at best. It did improve, so I mean, Verizon did switch to fiber. I think Comcast Xfinity has started doing that as well. But yeah, there's quite a time we're going single providers. I mean, it is pretty common throughout the US in general. My guess is Consolidated is probably, it's too expensive to service and equipment and whatnot. Could be a reason they're pulling out.
Well, Xfinity or Comcast said they are going to put fiber in. They told me when they hook up with the internet, mine's coax right now.
Okay, yeah.
But they said they're going to be putting fiber in and it would be much faster. And they said the upload and download speeds would be the same.
Yep, that's advantage of fiber.
But that's a real advantage too, especially if you're uploading a lot of things like I do.
Yeah.
My phone, every time I went with 25 pictures, it uploads them all to the cloud right away, and it's nice to have something that'll do that quickly as well. Used to take 2 hours on Consolidated to upload it. It's something ridiculous.
Before sleep.
Anyway, I just want to let you know if any residents complain, you might get some complaints on after the 3rd of April is the official date, because we got a letter at home. But they told us March in the letter they gave you. But I think it's actually the first week of April. It doesn't like so. We'll see how it pans out. But not been a good experience with them. So just thought I would share that, especially if we can get complaints for you. That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm good.
I just wanted to give an update on my Jared Box project. So I met with Mrs. Platt yesterday and we were able to like make a flyer. We're thinking of starting collections March 18th. So I think that's it's either a Monday. Yeah, it's a Monday. And then going through to April 31st. So we got that flyer ready. This weekend I'm gonna make like a box, kind of like a display to put on the table, and then I'm gonna meet with Mrs. Platt again on Monday to set the display table.
All right. This is not your first year doing this. is
No,
it?
I've been doing it the past 2 years, so this will be the third year.
Where's the flyer gonna go?
She's gonna send it out, she sent it on Facebook and then in the newsletter.
Okay.
Awesome. Mayor? Okay, I have three things that I just want to refresh council on, or maybe you're not even aware, some of you that are new. It involves recreation. And I had one-on-one conversations with Zach, so that none of this would surprise Zach. I was hoping he'd be here to comment, but I'm out and about and seems that I spend considerable amount of time with seniors. And so the thing that now the weather's getting a little better, they're thinking now again of what happened to our senior lunch? Why can't we do our senior lunch? That's number one. And number two is what happened to concerts in the park? And number three is what happened to movies in the park? So those are all things we used to do. And as far as the lunch for seniors, it happened once a month, and I was part of that, my wife. And at the beginning, we probably would get 60-some people. We had little groups. And every month the group would be assigned to bring the food. And then Zach would always, or Jim Watson, whoever was there, would arrange for some entertainment. So it was really a nice lunch, and there was a lot of goodwill among the people that was built through that luncheon. And then even before COVID, there was difficulties with the little groups doing their job, make it happen. So then we decided that we would cater it. Oh, and by the way, whenever everyone would do their little portion of bringing the food in, the cost was $2 a person. So then we went on to having it catered, and that went up to $10 a person. And that didn't go really well, and we lost some attendance there, but still there was attendance, and we still had the program, and we still had good entertainment and stuff going on. So when COVID now stopped, but now we couldn't even do it for, it's out of range now as far as having a caterer come in and having us, the seniors, to reimburse that. And so that's where it's at. And whether that's something that we want to reestablish again, it would probably have to take some support from the borough. So that's where that stands. But as far as the movies in the park, I guess at one time it was successful, but from what Zach told me, both the music, the movies in the park and the music in the park, both had very low participation. And Zach's comments to me was he doesn't feel that it's really worthwhile to reestablish those. So that's it. I just want to make the council aware of that little past history and some of the things that people still would like to have happen that aren't happening. That's it. Right.
Land use meeting, just give you
Yeah.
kind of a recap.
5 minutes, campus.
We looked at the tree canopy ordinance again, and it kind of breaks down into two bits, obviously preserving the canopy that's there. And also we talked a little bit about how do we want the buildup of new plantings and woodlands to be performed. And for that, we talked about cross-referencing the types of planting. And I know that we've already talked about the schedule of all the different types of trees that would be most appropriate. We took a look at Pines ordinance that had a pretty nice section of that. I think what we discussed was the possibility of coming up with some microcosm of all of those plantings that would be best for Franklin Park, and talked about how we would arrive at that. I believe the EAC is looking at that with REACH. So we're dealing with that right now. That will dovetail with the revised or a new, tree canopy ordinance, right, Max? At some point, we'll put that together and we'll have a draft of that to look at. We also talked briefly about separating types of zoning with buffers and reviewed the fact that that pretty much has happened between the different types of the zones. And then we talked about the fact that maybe residentially, we'd like to have ways to preserve the buffers that are already there, but that's an issue because you can't really tell people to do with their, do stuff with their personal property like that. We can encourage them and inform that this would be a good idea for a number of reasons, but we can't just say you have to do this. And then we talked about the voluntary preservation of buffers that some of the developers have done, and how that has been nice, but that is not something that we have been able to enforce if somebody later decides to take it down for convenience sake. So we talked about perhaps maybe investigating if there's something we can do once those buffers are in to hopefully make them part of the development plan and not just some voluntary concession, because that would be. We talked briefly about parking commercial trucks, and we believe that the ordinance that we have takes care of that fairly well and is a good balancing act. So we're not looking at revising that in any way. We talked about sign regulations. In there, we have pretty good sign regulations already in place. The issue is just enforcement. And we kind of lean on Andy Knock to do most of that enforcement. He does a pretty good job. And he's here to confirm that. So that doesn't seem to be something that we need to pursue at this point. I believe there's also, Luke raised the issue of turning on the Sandhurst, and there's some large spruces there that are impacting on the line of sight. And we believe that we can take care of that based upon the fact that there's vegetation in the right of way and help people so that we can restore the line of sight. So next steps I think we'll be looking at are working on the tree canopy ordinance and what types of trees we want there. Tim also is very helpful. He raised the issue of the stormwater ordinance. I guess it hasn't been revised in a number of years, and he believes that's something we really should work on. He indicated that there were a number of things that he wanted to put on a punch list for Max to take a look at in the way of just the overall land and planning ordinances that he thought would be helpful for making certain that things are clear so that he doesn't have to argue with somebody, this is what this means. And so he plans on putting together a punch list for Max on that. And that's the end of my report.
All right. Hey, go ahead. Luke, would you like to add?
I'm here. That was really all I had was what Brian just addressed.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. I guess we are now going to executive session.
Take a little break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good, see ya.